The Hunter exam marks the beginning of the Hunter x Hunter series. In the anime it is stated how thousands of people try every year to get their hands on a Hunter license, but few are the ones who actually manage to get it. In today's episode we will see what would happen if the Hunter exam came into real life, more precisely in America, and how many people could realistically win a Hunter license. In this episode we will take each test one by one and we will use the information that we have to slowly get to the final answer: how many people can survive the Hunter exam. Alright, before we start let's set some ground rules. We will consider that the population of America is 340 million because that's the information from the year 2025. We will consider that everyone competes at once. That means that even kids of all ages will be included in the calculations because we see in the anime that there is no age limit and even someone like Gon and Killua could compete. Don't worry, in real life kids will be eliminated pretty quickly. You'll see how the things these guys did in this exam are crazy. I will put a counter in the corners, one here, and one here. The number on this side will show how many contestants are left in the real-life version of the Hunter exam, and on the other side will be the number of contestants from the anime. I'm doing this so we can better observe the differences. Another thing I want to mention before starting the episode is that I know there is a version of the Hunter exam in real life, but this episode is based on the Hunter exam from the anime, which is not even close to legal, while the version made in real life is done by the law and there you have no chance to die. If you're curious, I recommend you check it out. From what I know you can find it on YouTube. Good enough with the introductions, let's start our exam, and don't forget to write in the comments if you think you could pass the Hunter exam. Good, now let's begin. The first part of the exam that we have to take into consideration is not the endurance test, but as we know from the anime, the Hunter exam starts from the moment Gon and the other applicants set foot on the ship. We know that until the actual beginning of the first part of the Hunter exam there were only 405 contestants left, and we find out from the ship's captain that thousands of people try every year to take the Hunter exam, so that means that most people are eliminated from the competition even before the first phase of the exam begins. It's hard to assume how many people would reach the Hunter exam because we don't know what criteria are used by these semi-examiners to accept people. From what we learn in the anime, these examiners let you pass if you manage to meet some personal standards, like in the example of the ship's captain. There, if you didn't get seasick, you were considered passed. But we don't know what criteria the other examiners had, although we can assume they had something similar, because you have to get by ship to the first stop. So we could eliminate all the people who get seasick. From a study I found, we can learn that 25% of the American population get seasick, which means that 85 million people would lose just from this criterion. That means we would be left with only 225 million contestants, and you couldn't say they would just hold on, because look at those waves. Alright, now that we got on land, there are a few more tests before the start of the actual exam, the first being the riddle from that lady, which is a much harder test than it seems. To remind you, the riddle consists of a question like the following. If someone takes your mother and your wife and you can save only one of them, who will you save and who will you let die? And the correct answer to the question was to say nothing. I'm very curious if any viewer ever thought that this is the answer. It's very hard to say how many people would pass this test because we don't have a study that looks into this information, or maybe we do. Do you remember that extremely popular question that goes like this? A train is coming fast and can't be stopped. The train is heading straight for 5 people and will kill them. But you have a lever you can pull and the train will no longer go toward the 5 people and instead will go toward only one person and kill him. Then it asks, what do? Do you pull the lever or not? I think we've all seen this question. It went all around the world. And according to psychologists, the correct answer is to say nothing, yes, just like in the lady's question. The correct answer is silence, because there is no right answer. And luckily for our episode, many studies have been made using this question. From what I found with the help of these studies, only 15% of people managed to answer with silence, meaning to answer correctly, which brings our number of contestants to a total of exactly 33,750,000, a number that is very small compared to the number we started with. And we'll see how the number will get even smaller with the next test that Gon, together with Kurapika and Leorio, had to pass. The next test is in a way quite similar to what the ship captain did at the beginning of the exam, and that is, if you manage to meet the examiner's standards, he takes you to the real exam. In the case of Gon and his friends, they had to solve a situation where some magical creatures attacked the cabin where the examiners who were supposed to take them to the exam were staying. This part was designed to see their abilities. Leo Rio managed to pass their test because he knew medicine very well, which met the standards of the examiners. And Gon and Kurapika, although they showed extraordinary physical abilities during the confrontation with the beasts and during the chase, what convinced the examiners was the fact that they managed to figure out who is who. Gon managed to realize that there are two different beasts, and Kurapika noticed the girl's tattoo, realizing that she too is a magical beast. Alright, now that we found out all the things our protagonists did to impress the examiners, it's time to see what percentage of people can do what they did. First, we'll see how many people can do what Leo Rio did, that is, we'll see how many doctors there are in America. According to the data available at the time of making this video, there are 1.1 million people who can practice medicine, which would mean only 0.33% of the entire American population. The second method we saw was Kurapika's method, which requires very high knowledge in history. If we take all the history teachers in America, which are currently approximately 165,000, that means 0.05% of the American population. And the last way we saw in the anime to convince the examiners is through Gon's method, and that is to realize the difference between two magical creatures that look the same. Here it's quite hard to figure out how many people could do this, because there is no exact study. However, we do have a study that shows what percentage of people can tell apart a pair of identical twins. I know this is not even close to the same, but it's the closest thing we've got. According to the study, it was found that approximately 25% of people can distinguish a pair of identical twins. It seems like a big number to me, but I won't dig further, so it stays like that. We come to the final calculation, considering 0.33% from doctors, 0.05% for history teachers, and 25% for people who can distinguish a pair of identical twins, we find that out of the 33,750,000 people, those who have at least one of these attributes amount to a total of 8.5 million people. So that's how many people in America manage to reach the exam if they take the same route as Gon. And now, finally, we can begin the real hunter exam. The first test, the endurance test. This test consists of running a distance that the participants don't know. In the first part, they have to run through a tunnel that is relatively safe compared to the second part, where they have to run through a swamp full of magical creatures that want to eat them. This first test wants to test the endurance of the participants and, as Kurapika says, it also tests the mind because you don't know how long and how far you'll have to run. This test will definitely eliminate most of the contestants, but first we have to figure out how far they ran and how fast, which I don't know. I searched a lot and couldn't find this information, so I asked ChatGPT how far they ran and in how much time, and it told me they ran around 80 kilometers, which is about 50 miles. And when I asked how much time they took to run that, it said about 8 hours, something not many people can do. Right off the bat we can eliminate 40% of the contestants because 40% of Americans suffer from obesity, and there's no way an overweight person could run that much. To find out how many people pass this test we need to look at ultramarathon runners and marathon runners, because there aren't many who can run 80 kilometers. The first thing we can point out are the ultramarathon runners. They would definitely be able to finish the test, but the problem is that in America there are only around 30,000 ultramarathoners, which means only 0.009% of the American population does this kind of race, and only that many would definitely finish the test. Besides the ultramarathoners, there are also regular marathon runners, who are approximately 500,000, that means 0.15% of Americans are considered marathon runners. Even though that's a lot, we can't count all of them because 80 kilometers is almost double the length of a marathon, and doubling the distance, especially in this kind of test, is not easy. So we'll stick with 200,000, that is, 0.06% of the population. If it seems like I cut out too many marathon runners from the calculation, don't forget that during the test they also have to defend themselves from magical beasts. Think my approximation is pretty accurate. So if we add the 0.009% of ultra-marathoners and the 0.06% of marathoners, we reach a total of 6,000 contestants who managed to pass this test. This test by itself managed to eliminate 99.93% of all the contestants. Compared to the anime, where 405 contestants started, or 404 if we don't count that one guy, and after the first test only 148 remained, so in the anime only 64% of contestants were eliminated, a number that is much lower than the calculation we made, but still very high. Alright, now that we finished the first round, it's time to cook. The second part of the exam. In the second part of the exam, as we well know, it started with a cooking competition, where Gordon Ramsay, Menchie, tasted all the dishes and eliminated everyone. Luckily, the test was cancelled and replaced with a test where the contestants had to jump into a canyon and then let go at the right moment so the wind would bring them back safely. In the anime, after this test only 42 contestants remained, so we get an elimination percentage of 72%. They were eliminated either because they jumped at the wrong moment and made contact with the ground, or because they were too scared to jump. This is something we can also use in our calculation. A study shows that somewhere between 20% and 28% of the adult population in America has a fear of heights. Luckily, we don't have to take the percentage from children because all children were eliminated in the first part of the exam. So, to also take into account the people who would jump at the wrong moment, we will set 30%, which even though is less than in the anime, is the best approximation we can make at this moment. After doing a quick calculation, we find that the number of people who managed to pass the second part of the Hunter exam is equal to 4,200, a reasonable number of contestants. Now we move on to the third part of the exam, and from here on things start to get a bit more complicated. The third part of the exam. Before we start, I have to eliminate 2 contestants from the Hunter x Hunter part because Killua decided to get rid of them. Okay, now let's truly move on to the third part of the Hunter exam where our contestants have to descend a tower by completing rooms. In the anime, after this test only 24 contestants remained, which means that 43% of the contestants were eliminated in this test. But if we want to see how many people would pass in real life, that is very difficult because we know very little about these rooms. We only know what happened in 2 rooms. We know what happened in the room where you had to work in a group and we know what happened in Hisoka's room, and even in these rooms we don't know everything that happened. To solve this problem, we can try to do like we did in the part with the magical beasts, where we see all the skills that help you win and see how many people have at least one of these attributes. But what are the attributes that can help you? How well you can keep a candle lit, or if you can pull the heart out of a criminal. At first, I thought we could see how many people have the ability to work in a team since teamwork was a major point in our protagonist's room. But the problem is, we don't know if there was any other room where teamwork was a major advantage, so most likely the rest of the rooms were solo rooms, as we saw in Hisoka's. Okay, now let's take everything we know and list it. From what we saw with the 6 characters, 4 of them had to fight a criminal or something similar, and only 2 had something based on thinking. I believe in most rooms the challenge was to fight a criminal because we know the examiner took many criminals for this test. So, to pass this test, you have to be able to fight hand to hand with a criminal. I have no idea what the answer to this question is, but if I ask ChatGPT how many adults could fight a criminal, it says between 10% and 20% of people who train occasionally can beat a criminal, and between 60% and 90% of well-trained fighters could beat a well-trained criminal. I have no clue where it got these numbers, but we will stick with them. Now that we have a bunch of percentages, we have to pick one. We can't pick 20% because people who got this far are very well trained, and not 90% because you saw how strong these criminals are. So, we will average the overestimation of people who train regularly and the underestimation of well-trained people, which gives us that 40% of people could fight a criminal. This number, compared to the passing percentage in the anime, seems like a pretty good approximation. So at the end of the third part of the Hunter exam, we are left with 1,680 contestants. Okay, now we are ready to enter the fourth phase of the Hunter exam. The fourth part of the exam. In the anime, in this part they had to hunt each other. Each participant has a badge, and to pass you need badges worth 6 points. Your own badge is worth 3 points, so if you keep your own badge until the end, you already completed half of the test, and the rest of the points must come from taking other contestants' badges, with each badge counting as 1 point. But luckily, you don't have to take 3 badges because at the beginning of the round you received a target. If you take the badge of this target, you get 3 points. So theoretically, to pass you need at least 2 badges, yours and your target's, which means that in this round at least 50% of the contestants will be eliminated. And I say at least because nothing stops you from stealing badges from everyone else. As we can see in the anime, at the end of the fourth part there were only 9 participants left, which means that 63% were eliminated, a number that is not equal to 50. This gives us some problems in the calculation because we have no idea how many will pass. In the highest case scenario, only 840 contestants would remain, and in the lowest case, only one person would remain, because nothing stops you from killing everyone. Another way we could find out how many people pass is to take the percentage from the anime and apply it to the number of participants in the real world. So, if we have a passing rate of 37%, we'd be left with only 730 participants. But I think I have a better way to calculate the pass rate. We will assume that everyone keeps their own badge and takes 3 other badges. In this way, we'll get a more accurate average and also make room for people who took the badge of their target and for those who took badges from others to eliminate competition. Okay, now that we have the right formula, it's time to do the calculation. We get 420 contestants, which means only 25% passed. To be honest, any answer I numbered could be correct, but this seems the best to me. Now we can move to the last part of the exam. The fifth part of the exam. In this part of the exam, contestants must fight one-on-one in a somewhat unusual way. The first special rule is that you do not have to kill or knock out your opponent, instead, you must convince them to surrender. If you kill your opponent, you are disqualified. Another interesting aspect of this part is that if you forfeit a round, you get the chance to fight another loser, and so on, until you either win or there are no more losers left to fight. This means that theoretically only one person could be eliminated in this part, but unfortunately, it's not that simple. In the anime, out of the 9 participants, only 7 managed to become hunters because Killua decided to kill again. This complicates the calculations a bit because the number of people eliminated is very hard to estimate. In theory, only one person could be eliminated, leaving 419 hunters, or possibly 0, since it's possible that everyone kills their opponent. But thinking logically, the most likely number of eliminated contestants is close to 1. As we can see, if you find someone as stubborn as Gon who won't surrender, you always have the chance to find someone more reasonable later. Especially because a stubborn person like Gon would only be found in the first round. If there were truly stubborn contestants, by now they would have either passed or be dead. And the case with Killua I think is a minority since he was forced to do that. So in conclusion, I strongly believe the number of eliminated contestants will be as close to 1 as possible. Alright, now that we've reached the end, let's look at the results of our video. In the anime, only 7 people managed to become hunters out of a group of 405. In the real-life hunter exam, only about 419, or fewer, people would pass out of a group of 340 million. Another interesting fact is that in Hunter x Hunter, in Season 6, we learn there are 661 hunters in the association. Comparing that number with our estimate, and considering there are people all over the world, not just in America, our estimate seems pretty solid. With all that said, thank you so much for watching the entire episode. This is the longest episode I've ever made, and I put a lot of work into it. If you could spare just a little bit of your time to leave a like and subscribe, I'd be super happy. It only takes a few seconds for you but means the world to me. And don't forget to write in the comments if you think you could have been among those 419 hunters. I'd love to see what strategies you'd use to win, maybe even something I didn't consider in this video. Until next time, I'm Anime Dog, wishing you all the best. Take care.